Hello, everyone. At this time, I would like to call this meeting of the LSU Presidential Search Committee to order. Ms. Griffith, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Armenter,
Here.
Mr. Osbury, Ms. Barrios,
Here.
Mr. Campbell, Mr. Casalot,
Here.
Mr. Clark,
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Valencia Jones, Ms. Jessica Jones,
Here.
Mr. Laborde,
Here.
Ms. Martin,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. Nelson,
Here.
Ms. Slaughter, Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Starnes,
Here.
Ms. Wagner,
Here.
Ms. Werner,
Mary is here. You're muted.
Mr. Williams.
Thanks, here.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, there's a quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Werner, would you mind giving us an invocation?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Please join me, bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering today, that we may all come together in this most important realm that we've been charged to work within, in a time of great discernment in our nation and great discernment for our university. Give us all the wisdom and guidance to make sober decisions with open and honest conversation, guided by our experiences and our knowledge. Bless us all in our work, in our play, in our service to this university, to our great state, and to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Casalot, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America,
America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the October 22nd, 2020 meeting. Those have been uploaded to Onboard, correct, Nicole?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Laborde. On the last paragraph of section 5, would you please amend the minutes to reflect that I also am a volunteer on the subcommittee for organizational structure?
Okay. Sure. That Winston, do we just make that change? How does that need to happen procedurally? You're on mute.
Nicole will correct the minutes. We just need a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
All right. Any opposed? All right, motion to approve the minutes carries. The next thing on the agenda is discussion of the research firm, and that working group is headed by Ms. Werner. They met yesterday. Ms. Werner, you want to talk about that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met yesterday. We are in the process of contacting and gathering introductory information from a number of firms. Several firms that have already responded have been uploaded to Onboard, and you can find them under the resources tab. We are still waiting response from only one or two. This is basic information so that we can look at their experience in the higher education realm. Many have experience in medical other executive types of searches, and all were brought to us through various means. And Mr. Osbury was very instrumental in helping us gather organizations that had that do work in higher education and that he had experience with and that others have had contacts with. We hope to have this list complete by Monday, and the committee will then meet to go through the different organizations and work through the system to contact each for a more in-depth conversation to bring back a shorter list for consideration.
Do you think, well, let me not go first. Anybody? Go ahead, Mary. Were you finished? I'm sorry.
No, that I'm open to questions from there. If any of the other committee members wish to add, and Mr. Chairman, go right ahead.
My question was going to be, do you think that I'd ideally like to pick a search firm at our meeting a week from today? Do you think that, I know that's fast, but do you think you'd be able to meet that? In other words, if you whittled it down and presented us with a smaller number, would we be able to have enough information from whoever those people are to make a decision next week, do you think?
I will say ideally, yes. I think now that we can weed out a lot by Monday or Tuesday of next week, I think we could have it down to a very short list for presentation to the board by Friday, maybe 3.
Okay. Are there any members of the committee who want to, I guess, voice to the working group their thoughts about what we should be looking for, what criteria we ought to, what things are important to us? I have some thoughts, but I'd want to give that opportunity now. Just as the working group is going to narrow these things down, it'd be nice to know from this committee what areas are important as they make those cuts.
This is Clarence Caswell. Just a couple of comments. I would simply suggest in an early cut be to make sure that none of these firms are conducting what I would consider to be competitive searches. And I do know one of the names on the list here is doing a search for one of our SEC peers right now for a similar position. So, and the chairman of that firm is leading that search. So I think it's important that as we consider these firms, we inquire as to not just their own capabilities and experience as a firm, but who actually would lead the search. Are they bringing the right people to the table? That's probably as critical as the firm itself. So just a suggestion.
Thank you. That's extremely important. Appreciate that, Clarence.
This is Gabby. I wanted to also ask, you mentioned experience with higher education searches, but I think we're interested in experience not just with higher education, but systems and research units that have both research and teaching and health units.
Yes, thank you.
I'd also like to add that if possible, that they have some experience with bringing a diverse slate of candidates. We don't need just a Rolodex of the same old. Diverse university, diverse slate.
Agreed.
Anybody else want to weigh in? All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Werner and the search firm working group. And we will we'll wait to receive more information from you all. I think for all the committee members, and you may know this already, but all of the search firms that are sort of under consideration have been uploaded to Onboard. So if you want to take a look and figure out whether you have any experience or heard of them, or looking at the information, the preliminary information we have thus far, if that gives you any ideas, please feel free to go on Onboard and look at what's there so far on the firms that are under consideration. And there may be someone or some company that you're aware of that we have not included on the list. Now would be the time to deal with that, because they're going to be cutting them down, as we speak.
And please, anybody, if you have a comment or a thought, in addition to Clarence, Gabby, and Roland, we welcome any thoughts on perspective on any part of this. And the points on research, competitive searches, diversity of candidates are very important. And I'm sure there are many other considerations that some of you have had experience with. So we welcome your input.
Just one thing too, I would like to know the firms that were used in, let's say, the last 2 or 3 presidential searches at LSU, who we used in the past.
If I'm not mistaken, Bill Funk was the one used in the most recent search. And is that correct, Winston? Okay. And possibly the one before that, but that one I know for sure.
It wasn't AGB, Mayor?
No, Bill Funk did the search for president. I mean, no, I'm sorry. You're right. AGB, Bill Funk was President Lombardi. My mistake.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mary. Thank you, Search Firm Working Group. Let's, we'll now move. The next item on the agenda is the job description. And Gabby, why don't you update us on the workings of that group?
Yes, I sent an email to all members of the search committee yesterday or the day before with a draft we have of the job description. We actually divided it in 3 sections. One is a description of the LSU system and the flagship campus. Another is with the president responsibilities divided on the including the ones that are in the bylaws, and then followed by expectations that we have from the candidate. And then finally, the required attributes and qualifications, a long list of those that we would have, that we require from the candidates, or we would use to evaluate the candidates. So the way we envision this is that for the description of the system and the flagship, we probably will iterate this, and that will be what's posted. Well, everything will be posted, but that's what will be. We will use the advice of a search firm, which will have a lot of input on what's the best marketing of the position. So we will iterate with them on that part. But we wanted to make sure that we agree with, we as a search committee and as an LSU community, we agree on the responsibilities and on the qualifications that we will use to evaluate the candidates. So we have received useful feedback. I encourage everybody to send any feedback, small or large. You can send it to me or to the members of the working group or to the whole search committee as you prefer. But we would also like to circulate a draft at the time when the search committee feels comfortable with. We would like to circulate a draft to the different campuses, to the different constituencies, the faculty, the students, to receive their input on this, so that we know that we represent what everybody wants this new president to do. And that's it for the update. Again, we welcome and encourage your feedback.
That is fantastic. I think what I'd like to do is if this committee could review the information that has been uploaded, provide any comments back to Gabby throughout the week, because I would like to set as a goal that we approve this at least from the committee's first approval, for lack of a better term, so that we can, once we make that approval next week, and we can begin to circulate it around the system for broader feedback. How does that sound? I think everybody's nodding. I don't see anybody flagging me down saying don't do that. So I'm going to assume everybody's okay. All right, well, perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you to that working group. Awesome job. Y'all have gathered information from a broad variety of sources. It's going to be quite an improvement for for what we have and very helpful in the search. So everyone, please take a look so that we can approve it next meeting, which is a week from today, and start the work of circulating this around the system. All right, the next item on the agenda is the schedule of remaining meetings. Is that because we have to approve that, Nicole?
I don't believe it needs approval. If Wednesday, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've distributed to the committee just.
The chair has the authority to schedule meetings. You would just be sharing it so folks could work it around their calendars early.
Okay, I understand that. Has everyone seen that? I think it was uploaded to Onboard. I hope it was. So everyone has that schedule. Okay, great. And our next meeting's in Alexandria, right?
We are here first, and then the following week, we're in Alexandria.
Following week. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and just a couple of people asked about that. I didn't want folk always having to drive all the way down to Baton Rouge, so I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to meet on a different campus that's centrally located, see a different part of the system, sort of emphasize that this really is president of the entire system. So we met at Pennington, which was one campus. We're going to meet certainly on the main campus. We'll meet in Alexandria, and while we won't be able to meet at all of them, maybe we will when we get down the line. But I think it's nice to kind of spread it around the state. So is there any other business to discuss or anything anybody else wants to bring forward? We don't have the organizational working group on the agenda. Winston, can we get an update? We don't have to vote, but can we get an update even though it's not on the agenda?
You can receive information from them.
Okay, Mr. Laborde, would you take it away and kind of tell us what's going on there?
My pleasure. And of course, we've got Ramey and Larry and Glenn and Christelle Slaughter. Slaughter has been added to our subcommittee as well. We've had a meeting on Zoom. We've predominantly been collecting data. We've got background on 18 plus different peer universities and how they're organized. We're doing some work there. We've been conducting interviews, as some of you know, with board members of this committee, members of the administration, discussing options there. We've worked with a little bit with Dr. Gonzalez, who's been very kind in sharing information and allowing us some input, because we think the job description needs to flow from that information. And we plan to meet again next week with assignments. We hope to have a couple of external interviews from other schools. Larry Clark is working on arranging one of those potentially, so we could get some outside feedback. I see Larry nodding his head. Thank you. And I think we would like to, from at least preliminary discussion, that our committee report should be considered advisory, to the effect of one, that that our recommendations, that whoever's actually hired for this position, the combined president and chancellor position, needs to have some flexibility in restructuring his support team around him. And so while we want to have some recommendations, just want to make it clear, we don't think these should be cast in stone until we actually have a decision on who is and who's going to be hired into the position. Secondarily, I've had meetings with Zoom meetings with Sandy Gallivan and Stacia Haney on SAC-COC. There are implications on changes in governance. We've been reviewing the SAC-COC documents and guidelines and make sure that we're aware of what those might be and the changes. And one of the easy decisions is that as we come up with recommendations, that we should approach SAC-COC for an advisory opinion before anything is actually finalized, so that we don't, for some reason, trigger an unplanned review of the university in the process. So that's kind of where we stand. We've had a number of specific recommendations from interviews as we go that like suggest this change or that. I think it would be premature at this point. I'd like some additional input. We're hoping to meet next Thursday, and I'd be happy to have you put us on the agenda for Friday. Again, not for a final report, but for an update.
All right. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Laborde? Okay, perfect. And
You have muted yourself.
Muted.
sorry, I say the final update we'll get is from Verge Osbury and the working we've been calling buy-in, for lack of a better word yet. But I think, Verge, it also stands out to me, and I'm glad you and Gabby work so closely together because, you know, once her working group finishes their product on the job description, I think they're going to be working with you to try to get this out into the right hands. So why don't you tell us what's going on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, I had conversations also with my committee members, our committee members, Lawyer Martin, Hannah Barras, SGA president. And I still got to get with Mr. Johnson on some details of how he would like this to look and any outside, internal, external people that we're going to use. I came up with like two sections, two groups we talked about earlier with the committee earlier. We have the faculty and the faculty senate. We have the staff senators. You have students, deans, vice chancellors and vice presidents on the campuses, the SG presidents throughout the LSU systems, the vice president of diversity through systems, the lab school and athletics. That's pretty much the internal part of it. Then we look at the other internal part of it, our health sciences, our physicians, the Pennington Biomedical Center, those groups. And then we jump to the external part. The external are the alumni, donors, contributors, Alumni Association, TAF, Foundation, booster groups. And then we jump into the external political part of it, the federal delegation, both congressmen and senators, definitely our delegation from Louisiana, the governor's office and his staff, the president of the Senate, president of the House, legislators, different government entities, talking about the Secretary of Agriculture, which is very important to us because we have ag in every parish in the state of Louisiana, the mayors of East Baton Rouge Parish, and we have an election here in Baton Rouge going on, a runoff, and also the mayor of New Orleans, well, Health Sciences Act. Those two people are very instrumental in LSU in those parts of the state. Then you have the district attorney who we have to deal with, you know, in many cases, in many situations. You have the sheriff, the state police, the fire marshal, LED, both of our lobbyist firms. You have a federal level, we have Adams and Reese, who does our lobbying in Washington, D.C. And here you have Jim Nickel and Bud Carson, who does a lot for us locally. The Division of Administration, Jay Darden's group. And then you have some outside groups we need to talk to, some business groups like the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, GNO Inc. in New Orleans, the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and the Baton Rouge Foundation. And Lori, I know she's gonna come with me, some other groups, especially faculty members, a diverse group of faculty members that we should talk to that work here on campus, and some faculty members who are former LSU graduates who work on other campuses. Hannah would like to talk to me about different student groups on campus that a president would definitely need to work with and talk to coming into the institution. And I'm gonna finally get with Lester here at the Health Sciences and see if I'm missing anything. And then we'll come back to you with a great list of things that people that you need to talk to.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Like I said on one of our smaller briefings, you've done a very good job of getting a comprehensive group together. And we definitely need to identify this, not just to make sure that we have support for what we're doing as a committee, but also so when picking the president, and recommending a president to the board, we need to take into consideration these different groups that the president would have to be successful in navigating. So I appreciate that very much, the work of your group very much. All right, and any other business, which is the last item on the agenda that we have not addressed? All right, and with that.
Actually, Chair Williams, I did want to bring other business, well, not the business for the decision, but for discussion. Some of us have been approached by the media about this committee. So maybe we want to discuss some protocols around that.
Thank you. I meant to address this last week and I did not, so thank you for doing that. The Board of Supervisors has a policy that we as a board speak through the chair. So whoever's the chair at that particular time, they speak for the board. So you don't have 16 different board members giving interviews, conflicting positions. It ensures that the board always speaks with one voice. I think that is the same philosophy and policy for this search committee, which would be, I think, and here's what I've told Robert Danf, is that any media communications that we make in terms of interviews or statements, I have deferred to Robert, because ultimately this is a committee of the Board of Supervisors. And I think, what Robert has said is that, look, if you get in a situation where you have to comment as the chair of the committee, that's fine. What I've told Robert is that what I'll try to do is I'll comment for the committee on sort of procedural things and workings and updates, and sort of defer more substantive comments to Robert. And then we can figure, unless it's an issue where we have to put out some sort of statement, and then of course the committee will collaborate on whatever we put out as a statement. But if there's a need for an acute, like a reporter grabs you or something like that, or calls you, what I would ask is that you refer those to me, and I will refer them to Robert if it's not a question like, when are y'all meeting, or is this going to be on the agenda? But if it's something more than that, I'm going to give it to Robert, but what we're going to do is give it to Strategic Communications. So we didn't have it today, but we have ensured that we always have someone from Strategic Communications present at our committee meetings. And so they will deflect most of that. But if you happen to get individual inquiries, please direct them my way. You can make Nicole aware of them as well, and then we'll get them routed. But the idea is to speak with one voice. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, with that, we stayed under 30 minutes, which I'm very happy about. So unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
All right, it's been moved by Professor Gonzalez, seconded by Supervisor Jones. Is there any opposition? The motion carries. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, very much for your work. Great to see you. And I look forward to seeing each of you in person next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.